Tomorrow, packing a single bag and just vanishing. No forwarding address, no goodbye text, no trace of where you went. Your debts? Gone, at least as far as anyone can find you. Your toxic job, your failed business, your crushing financial shame, all of it left behind. Now here's the thing, for most of us, that sounds like a fantasy. Maybe something you've thought about at 2 a.m. when you're staring at a credit card statement, wondering how you let it get this bad. But in Japan, this isn't a fantasy, it's a service you can hire. There's an entire industry, and I mean legitimate companies with offices and employees and business cards dedicated to helping people financially disappear overnight. They call it yonigeya. It literally translates to night moving services. And look, when I first heard about this, I thought it was some kind of urban legend. But then I started digging into the numbers, and what I found actually made me rethink everything I thought I knew about financial shame, debt, and why people really run from money problems. My name is Thomas, and I spend way too much time thinking about the psychology of financial desperation, specifically what drives people to take extreme actions with their money. If you're someone who has ever felt so overwhelmed by debt or financial pressure that you've genuinely fantasized about just starting over somewhere else, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today, we're going to talk about something nobody in the personal finance space wants to touch. The fact that for some people, the shame of financial failure feels worse than literally erasing your entire identity. And here's what's wild. Understanding why this industry exists in Japan might actually help you fix your relationship with money before you ever get to that point. Let's get into it. So let me paint you a picture of how this actually works. It's 2 a.m. in Osaka. An unmarked van pulls up to an apartment building. A team of 3 people, trained professionals, enters an apartment, and within 4 hours, every trace of the person who lived there is gone. Furniture, clothes, documents, photos, everything packed and transported to an undisclosed location. By morning, the landlord shows up, and it looks like the tenant simply evaporated. This isn't a movie. This is a Tuesday for companies like Yonigeya, which has been operating since 1992. Here's the thing most people don't realize. This isn't a small operation. Industry estimates suggest there are over 100 of these night-moving companies operating across Japan, and they collectively help between 100,000 and 150,000 people disappear every single year. Let that sink in. That's roughly the population of a small city just vanishing annually. And the price? It starts around $2,000 to $3,000 USD for a basic disappearance. More complex situations, like when you need them to handle your mail forwarding to a fake address, or when there's a particularly aggressive creditor involved, can run $5,000 to $10,000. Now you might be thinking, Nick, why would anyone pay thousands of dollars to run away from their problems instead of just dealing with their problems? And that's exactly the question that led me down this rabbit hole. Here's where it gets really interesting. According to Japan's National Police Agency, approximately 2,000 to 3,000 suicides per year are directly attributed to financial problems. 2,000 to 3,000 people who saw death as preferable to dealing with their debt. When you look at it through that lens, paying $3,000 to disappear suddenly doesn't seem so irrational, does it? But let's actually break down the math of what drives someone to this point. The average person who uses a Yonigeya service has approximately $30,000 to $100,000 in debt. Often it's a combination of failed small business loans, credit card debt that snowballed, guarantor debt, which is huge in Japan. You co-sign for someone, they default, you're on the hook. Gambling debts, and medical expenses. Now here's what most people don't realize about how debt collection works in Japan compared to the US. In America, we have bankruptcy protection. Chapter 7, Chapter 13, there are legal off-ramps. Yeah, it destroys your credit for 7 to 10 years, but you can rebuild. In Japan, bankruptcy exists, but the social stigma is so severe that many people would literally rather disappear than file. We're talking about a culture where your family's reputation, your children's marriage prospects, and your employment can all be permanently damaged by a bankruptcy filing. A 2019 study by the Japan Federation of Bar Associations found that only 70,000 people file for personal bankruptcy annually in Japan, in a country of 125 million people.
Compare that to over 400,000 personal bankruptcies per year in the US, which has 330 million people. Do the math. Americans are roughly 6 times more likely to use bankruptcy protection per capita. So where do all those Japanese people in financial distress go instead?
I want to take
Many
a
of
step
them
back
just
here
disappear.
because this isn't just about Japan. This is about understanding something fundamental about how humans process financial failure. There's a concept in psychology called financial shame, and researchers at the University of Cambridge found that it activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. Your brain literally processes money shame the same way it processes getting punched. And here's the thing, shame is different from guilt. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am bad. When you feel guilty about overspending, you might cut up your credit cards and make a budget. When you feel shame about your financial situation, you hide it. You avoid opening mail. You stop answering calls from numbers you don't recognize. You lie to your family about how you're doing. Sound familiar? The Yonigaya industry didn't emerge because Japanese people are uniquely bad with money. It emerged because Japan has a culture where financial shame is so overwhelming that disappearing feels like the only way to escape the identity of failure. But, and this is crucial, we're not immune to this in the West. We just manifest it differently. According to a 2023 survey by the American Psychological Association, 72% of Americans report feeling stressed about money at least some of the time, and 26% say they hide their financial situation from their spouse or partner. We don't have night moving services. Instead, we have financial avoidance, refusing to check bank accounts, geographic escape, moving to a new city to start fresh, lifestyle inflation to mask insecurity, and increasingly digital disappearance through cryptocurrency and offshore accounts. Different flavor, same underlying psychology. Let me break down who actually uses these disappearing services, because it might not be who you expect. Based on interviews with Yonigaya operators that have been published in Japanese media, there are 3 main categories. Type 1, the entrepreneurs, about 35%. These are people who took a shot on a business, failed, and now can't face their investors, employees, or family members they borrowed money from. The average failed small business in Japan leaves behind $60,000 to $150,000 in debt. Often, the business owner has personally guaranteed these loans, meaning their house, their savings, everything is on the line. Rather than go through the humiliation of bankruptcy proceedings where their failure becomes public record, they vanish. Type 2. The guarantors, about 30%. This is the one that surprised me most. In Japan, it's common to require a personal guarantor for everything from apartment rentals to business loans. Your parents, your uncle, your best friend vouches for you financially. So what happens when someone defaults and their guarantor is left holding the bag? Sometimes that guarantor, who did nothing wrong except trust the wrong person, ends up being the one who disappears. They can't pay the debt they never wanted, they can't face the person who put them in this position, and they can't handle the shame of being seen as someone who can't meet their obligations. Imagine your cousin asks you to co-sign on a $50,000 business loan. The business fails. Now creditors are calling you. You can't pay. You didn't even want the loan. Would you file bankruptcy and have everyone know, or would you consider just leaving? Type 3. The domestically trapped, about 35%. This is the darkest category. These are people, predominantly women, fleeing abusive situations where finances are used as a tool of control. The abuser controls all the money. The victim has no savings, no credit in their name, no financial identity. Traditional divorce would take years and require them to stay in a dangerous situation while assets are divided. So they hire a company to help them disappear overnight. In these cases, the Yonigaya companies aren't just moving furniture, they're potentially saving lives. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Nick, this is interesting, but what does this have to do with my financial situation? Here's what I want you to take from this. The existence of an entire industry built around financial disappearance tells us something profound about how we've collectively failed to build healthy systems for dealing with money problems. Think about it. We don't teach financial literacy in schools. We treat debt as a moral failing rather than a math problem. We celebrate income but never talk about expenses. We make bankruptcy feel like death rather than a fresh start it's designed to be.
And because of this, millions of people around the world, not just in Japan, spend years trapped in financial situations they could escape if they just knew their options and didn't feel so much shame. Here's my challenge to you. Stop treating your financial mistakes like they define who you are. I've talked to hundreds of people through this channel, and do you know what the most common trait is among people who are financially stuck? It's not stupidity, it's not laziness, it's not even bad luck. It's hiding. They're hiding their credit card balance from their spouse. They're hiding their student loan payments from their friends. They're hiding their salary from their parents. They're hiding their fear from themselves. And all that hiding creates a prison. It might not be as dramatic as packing up your apartment at 2 a.m. and fleeing to a new city, but it's the same impulse, the same shame, the same desperate desire to escape an identity that feels too painful to own. So what do you actually do with this information? Let me give you 3 concrete steps. Step 1, calculate your disappearance number. I want you to add up every debt you have: student loans, credit cards, car payments, medical bills, money you owe to family, all of it. This is your number. Write it down. Now here's the thing. Most people have never done this. They have a vague sense of a lot, but not an actual figure. And that vagueness is what allows shame to grow. A number is just math. A lot of debt is a moral judgment. Step 2, research your legal options. Whatever country you're in, there are probably legal mechanisms for dealing with debt that you don't know about. In the US alone, there's Chapter 7 bankruptcy, discharge most unsecured debt, Chapter 13 bankruptcy, restructure debt into a payment plan, debt settlement negotiations, statute of limitations on old debts, and income-driven repayment plans for student loans. Most people suffering from financial shame have never spent an hour actually researching these options. They've just assumed that their situation is uniquely hopeless. It almost never is. Step 3, tell one person. This is the hardest one. Find one person, a friend, a family member, a financial advisor, even an anonymous support group online, and tell them your number. The moment you say it out loud, the shame starts to lose its power. I've seen this happen dozens of times. Someone will email me about their insurmountable debt situation, we'll do the math together, and suddenly it's not a monster anymore. It's just a math problem that will take X years to solve at Y monthly payment. That transformation from shame to math is everything. Look, I didn't make this video to convince you to move to Japan and hire a night moving service. I made this video because I think the existence of this industry holds up a mirror to something broken in how we talk about money. We've created a world where financial failure feels so shameful that people would rather erase their identities than face it. And on some level, a lot of us are doing our own version of this every day. We're hiding, we're avoiding, we're running from numbers on a screen because we've somehow decided those numbers define our worth as human beings. They don't. Your debt doesn't define you. Your financial mistakes don't define you. Your credit score doesn't define you. Those are just circumstances, and circumstances can change. The people who escape financial shame don't do it by literally disappearing. They do it by turning around, facing the number, and deciding that math problems have solutions. So here's what I want you to do today. Take that first step today. Add up your number. Stop hiding from it, because the only thing worse than being in debt is spending years being in debt while also being terrified to look at it. If this video helped you think about money differently, hit that subscribe button. I make videos every week about the psychology of money and how to actually build wealth without losing your mind in the process. And hey, if you're someone who's been hiding from your financial situation, drop a comment below. Even just writing, "I'm facing my numbers today," might be the push you need. You don't need to disappear. You just need to deal. I'll see you in the next one.